that make it easier?
It's a little easier to sync it up on me. Getting better at it. Getting the hang of it.
You're making it work.
Yeah. Welcome to the Hot Mic channel. Hello, Vanessa.
Hi.
My lovely fiance.
Hello.
And just to give an intro, we're doing a very specific segment that hopefully we're going to do many more of, and it's called Rap Notes. And what we're talking about is our experience and history in the world of festivals, film and music, and mainly in those two, but there might be some outliers as well. I thought a good intro would be to qualify ourselves and what our history and our background is. Do you mind starting?
Oh, yeah. You can fast forward if you need to, but I'd love to give my qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
I attended a music festival first as just a festival goer. And then I got into an internship that took me back to music festivals. And I was working for free. I had my festival admission paid for. That was it. And it was
That
a
was
lot
the
of
perk of the
no,
experience of...
The perk was the wristband.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was when they were still using a lot of wristbands and RFIDs were still a new thing. So, but yeah, I got into music festivals first. And then I was doing that while I was getting my graduate degree in arts administration, which is when I first started looking at film festivals. I helped out with the Bloomington Pride Film Festival. And then I graduated in December, perfectly timed to volunteer my very first ever Sundance Film Festival. I had lived in Utah many years before college, and I knew all about it. My parents would go do the wait list thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I finally got back to it. It was just at such a bad time if you were a student. Like, you could
Mm-hmm.
never go to Sundance and be a college student or be in high school because it's right at the beginning of the spring semester, and you can't really take that time off.
Just the timing alone
Yeah.
kind of disqualifies it.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I had no idea exactly what it was going to be like, but I got wrapped up in the whirlwind of Sundance and loved every minute of it and felt like I had found my people, and they felt like they had found me as one of theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And I started networking for the first time in earnest and started finding my way into paid positions. My first paid position was as an assistant theater manager at the Sarasota Film Festival.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yes.
And what other positions did you hold? Because we don't need to get into the story right now. Truly just
Yeah.
a qualifier.
Yeah.
We're certainly, I'm not Bob Redford over here, but we certainly have the authority to speak on what the experience is like. And so assistant theater manager.
Yes.
Then where did you go from there?
I went directly to theater manager.
Nice.
I only had to do that 1 year, and then I was getting hired as a house manager, theater manager. I worked the AFI Film Festival and then the TCM Film Festival. And I was sticking with theater operations because that just had a little bit of everything. I got to lean into my people skills.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the go-to for a lot of requests, and just, it was awesome problem-solving experience.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
that's all. There's so many crazy things that happen at film festivals.
Yes.
It's like this crazy event that's really 200 events rolled into one. You've got to hire, a good crew to put it on.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still never enough people.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you have a half day, maybe a full day wrap party after the festival's over, and that's it. But there's still so much to talk about.
True.
I still think about it a lot.
So much in between, so many lessons learned while doing it.
Yeah.
For myself, I truly started at the bottom of the ladder, but I always worked in production. So I came in production, I left still working in production. Started as a production assistant, worked my way up to coordinator, and this, like yourself, was also at the Sundance Film Festival. I primarily worked in 2 states, and it was Utah and California. And in California, I was working in LA as well as San Francisco. And so those are the three primary cities that I was working in was Park City, LA, and San Francisco. So I had that was my triangle.
Really nice triangle.
It was good. It was fantastic, and I really was incredibly loyal to Sundance for so many years, and refused to work any other festival. I almost looked down on any other experience, or I didn't even look down on it. It was that I just wasn't seeking it out. I was like, I'm not really a festival guy. I'm a Sundance guy, and that really became a defining part of my identity. And worked my way all the way up to production manager, and that was a goal, but a lofty goal that I never thought I was going to reach. Because really, I was looking at the people who were in those jobs; they were mentors to me, and I didn't see them leaving that position. So I didn't see that position vacating.
There's not a lot of turnover with those.
Not with those higher positions.
Yeah.
They're so sought after.
Highly coveted.
Absolutely. And so it was fun to get to the top of that ladder and then exit the way I wanted to. So very romantic as far as the arc of that story. And that's what this segment of the podcast is all about, is talking about what that journey was like and all the crazy stories that go along with it.
Crazy stories, lessons, rants, perks, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I lived off of free swag for a while, eating Luna bars and Brookside chocolate candy clusters and a lot of free emergency. That was that was the healthcare plan for so many festivals was, hey guys, here's this big box of emergency. Please use it.
Vitamin C sponsor. Yes. Oh, I remember in San Francisco, it's Zico. What's the coconut water?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was the hangover cure of the. Also, I was working hospitality that year, so we were running a bar for filmmakers and staff, and so every night I was tending bar, and so.
That's the dream.
It was very important to have that hangover cure and have free coconut water available. So it's easy. I don't know if you tell me if you agree with this, but it's easy to things look good in the rear view. So the memories that I hold close to front of mind when I'm thinking of that festival experience, they're positive experiences, and they're the fun, the cool interactions you had, the heroes that you met. Let's not go to that. Let's talk about nightmarish conditions, hellish conditions to start off with, to give the reality of what working in this side of showbiz was really like.
Sure.
So does anything pop up?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My first thought is immediately of Tomorrow World.
Okay.
I think that was 2016, fall, October 2016. I was lucky enough to network with my friend into a really cool gig there. And this was it's actually a European festival. It's an EDM festival. So
okay,
awesome music.
Cool.
Right from the beginning. It's
fun.
like 900 stages, DJs, but one song.
Okay.
But it's an amazing festival. It's got this crazy art. They ship it all over on freights. I mean, it's got these insane set pieces. And so I was there, and it was out on this beautiful farmland outside of Atlanta, about 30 minutes outside of Atlanta. And then we saw everything coming together in this beautiful, beautiful site. Just gorgeous stages. There was a bridge floating in the water in one section. And then the day of the festival comes, first day, and it starts to rain. And,
oh boy.
And then it didn't stop raining. It just didn't stop raining. So like the end of the first day, we're like, this is like not the best, but it's a festival. It's raining. We'll deal with it. And then as the second day gets underway, it's like, this is a serious problem because the mud pits are just getting
out of control.
Out of control. Mm-hmm. So many people drove there from Atlanta, parked, and then took a bus, like a shuttle, another 2 miles in to get into the festival grounds. So late that night, as people tried to leave, the shuttles got stuck in the mud at like 2 a.m. So patrons were just stuck. They couldn't get back to their cars to leave. They didn't bring their stuff to go camping. They thought, oh yeah, I can just come out and enjoy the day and get back to my lovely condo, house, apartment, whatever. Yeah, it didn't happen. And it was deemed an act of God.
Totally.
Yes. Yeah. I felt so bad for everyone stuck in the rain. At least it wasn't cold yet. That was the thing. It's like there was a lot of bad press the next day about what patrons had to go through, who got stuck and had to end up just sleeping outside. It was still it was a good 70 degrees at night. Like it wasn't like it was still really warm.
Okay.
It was a really warm rain.
Yeah, swampy.
So yes, literally. What the
patrons
I felt
had to
bad
endure
for them, but anyone sleeping outside is like, yes, you had to sleep outside, but you weren't freezing to death.
Yeah.
You weren't even cold. You were just uncomfortable. Yeah.
There can only be the contingency plan for act of God can only be so much. Like you can only do so much, and then you're like, okay, we're crossing our fingers. It's not going to be an absolute downpour for several multiple hours. And in that case, it's like, yeah, we're all in this. We're all going to have to endure this. But the people who paid to be there, it's like, I didn't pay for this. And the people who are working it are like, I'm not getting paid for this.
I'm not getting paid enough to deal with this. And a lot of people who work that type of festival, at that point in the evening at like 2 a.m., a lot of them are having a lot of fun too. So it's not the most reliable system when it comes to acts of God.
I actually loved for Sundance the heavy snow years. So it's right at the beginning of the year. It's right around the last 2 weeks in January. But that doesn't guarantee absolute snow coverage or a winter wonderland.
No.
But I loved when that would happen because I felt like it leveled the playing field. There was something, there was a statistic like 40% of Hollywood, working Hollywood, would migrate to the festival just for the first week.
40%?
40%. I don't know how accurate that is. I'm just throwing out numbers.
I like it.
But 40 is kind of what I remember somebody telling me. And some of them are utterly inequipped to be there. But they're wealthy as sin, and they're snooty and snotty, and they're difficult to deal with, and they're pure LA trash.
What are you talking about? I don't. Okay. All right. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, stylish but not functional. That's how I'd classify most of their attire for Utah in January. And when the snow would fall, it felt like it kind of leveled the playing field. Like we're all equal now. We're all like, we all could die if we slept outside right now. So I loved, even though it meant for production and pretty much every other department, mainly production, that we're going to be doing snow removal around the clock. There's not going to be downtime. You're not going to see any movies. You're not going to go to any parties. It's like, no, if it continues to snow, we're just moving from one part of town to the other so that we can clear sidewalks.
Yeah, your job just got really simple, but not easy.
Not easy, simple.
Very simple.
Yes. And so even though that made the festival harder and more backbreaking, there was something I liked about that. It was simple. You weren't making as many choices. It was, this is what needs to be done.
This is what I have the energy for. This is what I can do.
Yeah. And I'm sure you can attest to it. You managed one of the largest theater at Sundance.
It was at the time.
It was. Is there a larger capacity now?
They've got a couple new theaters for Sundance since we left, which wasn't
that should be said
long
too,
ago. Yes.
That were removed by a few years, and things have absolutely changed at Sundance. So we are definitely talking. I'm more removed than you are. My last year was 2016.
And my last year was 2017.
Yeah. So definitely have been changes made. So we're talking a bit about Sundance of yesteryear, but that's okay. At the time, you were running the largest venue. Yes. Not only the largest theater, but the largest venue.
Yes.
And you had a massive walk-up sidewalk, like from all angles, multiple bus stops to keep clear. And you have an army of volunteers. But let's be honest, they're there for the free jacket.
They do love those free jackets.
They're there for the perks. They're not there because they're
there to have fun.
Yeah, I'm going to generalize here because they're also not in the room.
This is a safe place.
They're there for the perks.
Yes.
And for the most part, they're interested in doing the least amount of work for the most amount of perks.
Yeah, I would agree.
Fair?
I would say that's totally fair. And when we see a volunteer who wants to go above and beyond and is doing more than the bare minimum, we're often looking at them to possibly recruit the next year as a staff member.
They could become staff.
Absolutely.
Not a guarantee.
That's how I got in. My first 2 years at Sundance was a volunteer. I made a good impression in the logistics department and got in. Becoming
staff is very difficult.
It is.
A lot of people talk about how coveted the volunteer positions are. And they're like, you got to snatch them up. They go quickly.
Yeah.
With the staff positions, it's really about who you know.
And
if you
timing.
don't know anyone, timing's huge. Yeah.
Like there are some venues that are highly coveted. Like we know the New Frontier space for visual art at the Sundance Film Festival. I mean, that was a space that I hoped to run one day, but I just couldn't wait long enough. The same woman continued to run it, and that was that. So there are certain venues that have turnover and some that don't, and you just kind of have to hope that the timing works out.
Did you have people on your volunteer team that stood out in the opposite way, where it was like, I need to find, we don't need to name names. Or how about last names only? And first name initial. Is there anyone who stands out that working with them it was so much extra work because you were needing to give them tasks to keep them out of the way, almost as a preemptive damage control? Like, this person is a liability. I need to keep you occupied so that you're not messing with my line. You're not interfering with talent. Yeah? Does somebody bing come to mind?
There are a couple that come to mind from venues over the years. I think what is so commonly the fault is that they're actually a volunteer who's connected to that venue year round, and we're just there at that point in time, and so they're used to doing things the way they like to do them in their venue, and we have reasons for the way we want to do them in the venue. So it's a lot of back and forth about, here's what I'm asking you to do. Wait, why would I do it like that? I always do it like this. Like, well, please, will you please do it like this?
Because there are factors at play that you are not privy to.
I've been planning this for 2.5, maybe 3 months. So please just trust me. Or no, okay, I have to tell you why. Okay, we'll get into it.
Well, that's an interesting argument because you will get into that. You can get into that with volunteers who have been there 6, 7, 8 years, and they've seen 6, 7, 8 festivals. Yet they've been there a total of maybe 3 weeks, 2 weeks per year. And you've spent 6 months. Yeah, maybe you've only been working. Maybe this is your 3rd festival. Maybe this is your 4th festival. It's like, but I've been here planning this for 4 to 6 months. And there's a familiarity to like what we're doing as an operation and how we're planning this festival that's far beyond these people's very limited experience of like being there for the festival, which can lend itself to maybe some kind of knowledge around crowd control or redirection or problem solving. But typically you get a know-it-all. You can get a know-it-all volunteer who's like, I've been here this long. And it's like, yeah, but you got in 2 days ago. You don't know what's going on right now.
Don't know. The other factor at play is that you're working with volunteers. They're literally giving you their time. And for this type of event, the type of people who are going to give us their time, a lot of them are people who just want an in to the industry. So they're not really there to work. They're there to rub elbows.
Yeah.
So I've definitely had to keep an eye on a couple of those where I see that they're just wandering off. And, obviously a big no-no is taking picture with talent and, trying to identify who's going to be most likely to try that and heading it off and trying to just make it easier for them to not be tempted with that decision.
And at that point, you really hope that the volunteer department has done their job in screening.
Sure.
When bringing somebody on board. But that's a very difficult process because they're bringing on board something like 1,700 people.
Yeah.
Or so.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that about the volunteer?
I think it's been close
workforce?
To 2,000 on certain years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, depending on venue numbers.
That reminds me of something.
Yeah.
When you were talking earlier about, it looks good in hindsight. I think also when we were doing these festivals, it looked good from the outside. Like when I was posting things on Facebook and telling people where I was and what I was doing, it looked really cool. And then there was the reality of what our office space was really like, which was definitely varied on the festival. But in general, we were corralled in. And I remember being in the Sundance office, being in a cubicle, like we had cubicles by department. And so my entire department was in one cubicle. That was 10 people working, or 8 or 10 people working. And then right across, 3 feet away was the volunteers department cubicle.
Yes.
Where all 8 or 9, 10 volunteer organizers, staff members recruiting volunteers would be screening volunteers, calling them up. This would happen in October, November, and they'd be calling them, interviewing them, and trying to vet them. And I just hated it. I hated hearing that all day. I felt so bad for my coworkers who were having to ask the same questions over and over again. I felt bad for me because it was like on one side it's that, on the other side it's the events department chatting up a storm about whatever cool things happening that week, and it was hard to concentrate. I definitely wore my headphones at work for that job.
It's one of the most congested office environments I've ever experienced. Yeah. In that you're on the phone a lot. You're having a lot of communication that's out loud, and most of your at desk time when you are making spreadsheets, doing all the admin stuff, was so often interrupted by either a distraction or someone just coming over and engaging you. It was no like, hey, can we set up a meeting or an appointment? You're like, I can actually see their head over a couple of cubicle walls. I'm just going to walk over there and bug them. Yeah. Or I'm going to derail them from whatever productive task that they're on.
And we had to lean into it.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly did. I had fun with making fresh biscuits in the morning and walking them around the office, and
I do remember your biscuits. They were delicious.
Handing them out to my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And also just walking around distracting people. It's what I did then. It's what I do now.
So the process that you're talking about, where they're vetting the volunteers.
Yeah.
So there's the film festival, and then, as I mentioned, other fringe type event things that we were involved in. One that I was involved in is the origin of the Sundance Film Festival, which is the Sundance Summer Labs. So cool, and I'm privileged and honored that I got to participate that in the years that I did, and the people that I worked with. Tremendous experience, very unique. You live on a mountain. It's basically a summer camp for artists, high level artists who are going to become the next big thing, or that is the hope. And you're really nurturing these burgeoning filmmakers, playwrights, composers, documentarians. That is the nature of the program. What I was responsible for was transportation. And once you're on the mountain, it's a very small mountain, a box canyon. There's only one road in and out. There's no through traffic. Once you're on the mountain, you don't have a vehicle. You rely completely on a shuttle service. And then occasionally there'll be rides into town, which the closest town is Provo. So it's not on a liquor run.
I hear you can have a really good time there.
Yeah. Yes, if you're looking to pray
the gay away.
Pray the gay away.
Yeah, it's probably a good place to do that.
That's a good place for that. It's a hub. And so I was running all the transportation, and so I was involved in that process of vetting. Now, I was the second tier, so the volunteer department had already gone through and given me a cache of potential volunteers who could come on board as drivers. Now, I always struggle with this process. The process I didn't struggle with. The position itself was classified as a volunteer position, but they were actually paid. They were paid a flat rate.
Like a stipend?
They were paid a stipend for their whole time and experience there. And it was a fair wage for I think it was about a 6-week commitment. I saw a benefit to categorizing these people as staff rather than volunteers. I think there's a psychological effect to being considered, thought of, even think of yourself as staff over volunteer. Now, I am totally talking down about volunteering. I've certainly volunteered in my life, and it is a noble thing that you can do with your free time. You are gifting your time to a cause, to a program, and I don't want to completely shit on that. But there's also some great value in being valued, and that's what we were doing. We understood that these people were giving up a really good chunk of time. Maybe they're taking time off of work, so we need to give them some kind of a bonus pay, a stipend. Now, a stipend, that's just what we called it, but all expenses are covered. Your housing is covered. All meals are covered.
Oh.
Yeah, you're not paying for anything on the mountain.
Well, then you're definitely staff.
You're staff. You're getting paid. And I always...
It's a huge cost.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're paying for every meal that you eat, 3 squares a day, and we're putting you up in some lovely mountain home where you got a bedroom, but you're living in a $1 million mansion or some adorable cozy cabin that's snuggled up by a river or something. And you're living on the Sundance Resort Mountain, which is one of the most gorgeous places to be. But yeah, what is your take on that we would instead call it a volunteer position and go through the volunteer department, where I was absolutely screening them as if they were going to be staff. I had to build a team of about 10 to 14 drivers per lab, and I'm interviewing each of them. They've had one interview with the volunteer department themselves. They kind of get past that original screening and say, okay, this is somebody who's a good candidate for you. And now I'm taking a look at them, and I really am going into those areas that you touched on, where it's like, is this somebody who is prone to, I don't know, wandering off of responsibility? Like, are they trying to shirk responsibility so that they can get some free time for the festivals to see screenings? Or if this is like, I just want to hike all day, and as soon as my gig's up, like, the hours fluctuate, so that wouldn't be good. And then somebody who's hungry to be around celebrities and wants to make connections, to rub elbows, to network. Those were huge red flags. And so yeah, anyways, that was kind of a question.
I think it would benefit the program to call them staff, because you just get a lot more, how do you say?
Accountability?
Yeah. Well, there's way more accountability when you're seen as staff. And then when you're a volunteer in that type of position, you just think that you always think you're doing them the favor. So you're just not as worried about things. It's always, when I'm a volunteer, I feel like, well, I'm going to do what I was told to do, but I'm also not going to worry about what happens outside of that and how it affects the rest of the festival, because I just assume there's somebody else responsible.
Yes.
There is a staff member responsible for what I'm doing. And yeah, it seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah. That's actually a great read on it, because I found so much of the consequences of their lack of accountability all fell on me.
Yeah.
And there were things that I had to keep going back to in my rap notes and say, did I screen properly? Because this person was asked multiple times around, like, well, what is your relationship with celebrity? Like, have you ever been around famous people? Has this ever been a part? Because at the labs, at the labs, it was different than at the festival. The festival, there really is that air of, like, you don't know who you're going to sit next to in the theater. You don't know who you're going to ride the elevator with. Like, it could be a film critic, it could be a filmmaker, it could be a famous actor.
Absolutely.
At the labs, it's going to be a filmmaker. It's going to be a famous actor that you've seen throughout the decades. Like, it is a guarantee. So it's very important that we didn't embarrass the institution of Sundance by having somebody who was being unprofessional and asking for a photograph or an autograph or a role in their next movie, something like that. And it would happen. And it was tough, because I would certainly beat myself up when I would have one of the top directors of a specific lab come to me and talk about, so this filmmaker has complained multiple times about this driver, asking about, hey, I'm moving to LA in a few months, and I would love a job on your next. It's like so unprofessional. I think if they had considered themselves as staff, they would have seen that this is unprofessional. Whereas a volunteer, there's certainly a level of professionalism, but the bar is so much lower.
Do you think that there might have been a legal financial reason they weren't called staff? Because I feel like I saw a lot of different pay structures during my time at Sundance. And by the time I was leaving, I think they were getting pulled under more scrutiny as far as their hiring practices went, and who was getting paid what and what was legally required. Because as I told you, the last year I worked Sundance, I was actually getting paid overtime during the actual festival.
Right, and that was a new change
new.
to the pay structure.
Mm-hmm. But I'm just wondering if that had something to do with it. If they had been classified as staff legally, they might have been required to pay them even more than that stipend on top of housing them and whatnot. And I bet they see it as kind of balancing out, considering that they are paying for the housing and whatnot. But here's my thing, is if they are at all fudging it to work best for them, then they could fudge it just a little bit more and do the exact same thing with those volunteers, giving them the stipend, putting them up, not calling them staff on paper, but then calling them staff to them, giving them the staff credentials, just treating them as staff.
Yes.
Even when they're not technically staff on the books. That happened to me at a festival one time where I was hired to be in a department, and it was sort of a new position, but they were really excited to have me on. And then at the last second, like a week before the festival started, there was a last minute tech like projection emergency where they had to get like a new deck or something, like something really expensive. And they were like, we lost the budget for your position. Because I wasn't going to get paid much, but it was going to be, I don't know, like $750, $1,000 for the weekend. And it was just, they didn't have it anymore to give me. So they gave me an option. They said, you know, we feel terrible that we promised you this and we can't give it to you. If you would like to still come and have the work experience, we would still honor you as staff and give you a staff credential, even though we're not paying you. And I was so ambitious towards my career as a festival gypsy and trying to get more gigs and make a good impression and network and find my way into better gigs. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I was treated as staff, and it was a great experience. It definitely led to more gigs.
I think that was a good play,
yeah.
too. Certainly in those early days, to get any staff credential will help you move into that next festival, that next staff position.
Yeah.
We're making that leap from volunteer to staff. That's probably the hardest bridge to gap. Hardest gap to bridge? I don't know.
It'd probably be hard to get away with if you're doing that a lot on any large scale. But because some volunteer will figure it out and be like, you're not allowed to call me staff unless you pay me more or something. So, but that's what we're getting into. We're getting into the weeds because this is a very complicated industry of how each festival works. Yeah.
And I think the purpose of the first rap notes is to kind of lay the groundwork for getting into the weeds in very specific areas. So I like that we're just bouncing off the walls from festival to festival, from experience to experience, to kind of show the broad strokes of what we want to cover in this segment, or in this very specific podcast that is Rap Notes. Because that's what we're doing when we finish a festival, is we take Rap Notes. We all sit down together and talk about what went right, what went wrong. And you get good at it after the years. So I did festivals for a solid 10 years. And you did 8, right?
I did 7.
7.
Yeah, you could call it 7.
Right.
6 or 7.
And you worked far more festivals than I did. But I think
you put in a lot
showing
of time
the longevity.
At Sundance.
Yes,
Yeah.
the longevity of what we did and how many different experiences we have. We have friends who have a depth of knowledge that is far greater. We have friends who've really decided to go career with this, and it'll be very interesting to have them on the podcast and talking as well. And when you were mentioning the different pay scales and what implications they would have, I think somebody within HR in one of these would be fascinating
would be
to
great.
talk about. Yeah,
absolutely. We also know a lot of people who just did 1 or 2 festivals and never came back.
That's true.
And I respect the way you put your time in at Sundance, and you had your triangle, your heavy hitters that you kept going back to. And I certainly had a couple that I went back to several times. But I saw it in a way as like when I was thinking about what I was doing, I wanted to keep moving up at each festival, but I also saw it as kind of like a festival passport. Like I wanted to experience each major film festival or music festival. I mean, I did the Bonnaroo Music Festival and I did Outside Lands Music Festival, and those are two of the biggest. And I loved comparing those, but it's almost like that Girl Scout mentality. I wanted to get all the badges on my vest.
Will you fire off a list of your badges?
Yeah, I mean, I got into Telluride Film Festival, All Good Music Festival, Wakarusa Music Festival, the Hawaii International Film Festival, the Mill Valley Film Festival.
It's a good one.
The Turner Classic Movie Film Festival.
That's the best one.
Did I ever say Telluride?
You did say Telluride.
Well, I'm saying it again because that's one I'm very proud
Double
of
down.
doing. Is Telluride.
Nice.
And there were some festivals I didn't get to that I was really hoping to get to, and certain things didn't work out or it wasn't the right time. Certainly, you know that with the San Francisco International Film Festival, it usually conflicted with the TCM Festival. And this was
right.
The nature of the game was that there are all these major festivals. There are many more than you can fit into your year. So you had to figure out what to prioritize and what was most important to you, because they would often conflict. And so if you did this festival, it meant you couldn't do this festival. That's how I never ended up out at, Seattle International Film Festival. It's a big one that neither of us have done. But
right.
I bet we could easily get someone in here talking about it.
Absolutely.
Tribeca, same thing. Or did you actually work Tribeca one year?
No, I certainly had opportunity, and I had no interest in working in New York City.
That looked really complicated.
Yeah.
To come in and out so quickly.
No interest.
And they didn't provide housing. So it's like, I have to find housing in New York, and it's only for this much time, and it's coming up this fast. Like, not.
They made it
not
a
worth it.
no-brainer for me. I'm not fond of the city anyways. It was just imagining driving box trucks through New York City. And I'm a superb box truck driver.
You could do it.
I could do it. I have
wouldn't enjoy
precision. No, I wouldn't enjoy it. It was too stressful. And then, no housing provided. It was like, I got other options and never did it. But I know I've actually been to some Tribeca parties. Even saying that, I've been in New York while Tribeca was happening, and I've gone and I've seen some friends, and fantastic venues, great parties. They put on a great event. It didn't appeal to me to actually manage the logistics of putting on a festival in that city. Toronto was a big one that I
would
thought,
have loved to have gone there.
Yeah.
Heard a lot about that one. But we
heard great things about that.
As American citizens, we would have had to volunteer for that one. They won't pay Americans.
Okay.
They can't. I'm not sure how it works.
Or they pay you in Canadian money, and that's not real money.
Say good luck.
Yeah. It's got a maple leaf on it, eh? Try and cash that.
Under the table.
You call it a maple under the table. That was one that was always appealing to me. I think they say geographically that is. Oh wait, no, I think Toronto is seen as the largest, and I think it's as far as attendance that they can have the largest attendance. Sundance is the largest geographically, but they cheat and they spread it out over all these cities. Like you've got Park City, you got Salt Lake City, you got the Sundance Resort, and then you've got Ogden. So that spreads this out over 150 miles. Like
I think they stopped using Ogden. Finally.
Did they?
I think so.
The Egyptian?
I think they finally...
Did you ever see that theater?
I never got to.
I
would have loved
beautiful.
to. I saw pictures. It looked amazing.
It was a really cool theater.
What is that? Like another 45 minutes outside of Salt Lake?
It's very far away.
Yeah.
I could understand how that would be cut.
I also never
from
made it
venues.
to the Sundance Resort Theater because that was such a long bus drive from the main festival area. And as you know, I get motion sickness and it just wasn't worth it.
Yeah, not a good deal for you. You're also tethered
Yeah.
to a location.
Always.
As a theater manager.
Always. In fact, I did the 2 years I was at Eccles, at Sundance, the big venue. I never got to leave ever. I think maybe I made it to Main Street once on one of the last days, but I still wasn't supposed to be there. And then I was so happy I got to do one more year at Sundance, because my last year I got to run the Filmmaker Lodge, which was not
So
a theater.
cool.
It was just a venue that had panels and a really just amazing program.
What kind of venue was it?
It was an Elks Lodge.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Elks Lodge in downtown Park City.
And who managed the Elks Lodge?
Dusty.
Dusty. Shout out to Dusty.
Shout out to Dusty.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was the best job. It was so tempting to come back another year. I really wanted to, but I also had to move on with my life, and it wasn't a full-time job. That was the thing. Like, I felt so bad because I knew Al had keep just turnover and turnover and turnover. He just wanted me to stay one more year. We worked so well together, and I was like, well, it's not a full-time job.
Let's give a shout out to Al.
Al Bialik.
Bialik. Good guy. Great to work with. True professional. Yeah. It was that was actually one of the coolest venues from the time I started. And there's so many phases and eras to these festivals where I've told you stories because I started a few years prior to your staff run at Sundance. And there were certainly some leniency during my early era that is looked at like, oh, God, we missed the good years. But even when I started, people were telling me stories about their level of leniency. And, oh, my God. And so I felt the same way. And I think it probably just comes in waves, comes in these different generations of people who are working. When I first started at Sundance, the Elks Lodge was used as it was a versatile venue. There were still panels that would happen, but every single night it would be it would be transformed into the late night lounge. Basically what I ran in San Francisco was, we didn't call it the late night lounge, but that was what we were doing. Here's a party place for staff and filmmakers. And it was wild. It was they didn't have the restroom facilities necessary for the number of people.
No, they did not.
There's no chance
that plumbing was so
we were
old.
to code.
So old.
Even a single night at the Elks Lodge, the number of people that we packed in there. I wonder if anybody who was managing the Elks Lodge, I wonder if Dusty really knew what was going on after hours.
I think they knew. And that's why they phased that out. It was definitely, I think, an easy decision once it affected the plumbing.
It's like, you can have this as a venue.
You can't destroy
There's
it.
no late night activity. You cannot turn this into Studio 54. And that's really what it became. Yeah. That was a wild era. And
and there were certainly still some late night parties thrown after late night lounge was over. I've heard and I've seen photos. And that was all I had to do to be impressive the year I was managing it, was to not throw late night parties that I wasn't supposed to.
It was tempting though, right?
Actually, not that year.
Okay.
It was a still healing from my divorce year.
Oh, okay.
And I was still figuring out how to socialize again. I wasn't feeling that kind of like spontaneity. I want to risk my job to please all my friends type situation. I wasn't there. I definitely had been there in the past, but thank goodness it wasn't while I was in charge of Filmmaker Lodge. Because what was actually fun about that venue was just being there by myself when it was after hours. It was such a cool venue. All this old wood and leather, so many leather couches, and then the giant elk heads up on the wall, and the set pieces that they build, they come in and build for the festival, are just so intricate and cool and well lit. And it was just so fun to be there by myself.
Yeah, and you take down all that pipe and drape that surrounds, and it's just a wall of white old faces.
Yes, it is. and we will get in so much trouble if we hurt any of them.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some cool and strange like thrones, like elk thrones for elk.
That's right.
Elk
And they were,
leaders,
like,
elders. I don't know what they're called.
Ornate, carved, heavy wood chairs.
Yeah.
It was a really neat venue.
Didn't it seem like it was always too much furniture?
Oh, we had...
Like, it was like, why are there this many leather couches in here?
And we bring a lot of it in.
Yeah,
from the
that's
Sundance
true.
catalog. There's literally a partnership where, like, whoever does this venue along with another person on staff, it's a long story about how this partnership works. But the gist of it is a couple staff members from Sundance go down to the Sundance catalog offices.
I know who moves it.
And then we literally pick furniture out of people's offices. Like, it's their office furniture for people to come sit on when they're there to meet them in their office. And we steal it for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And it lives at the Filmmaker Lodge, and it helps. But yes, there's too much. I will definitely say we don't need that much.
It's excessive. It's excessive leather. Yes, I'm very familiar with that process because I was the one moving it, and then once I climbed the ladder, I was the one delegating that task.
You're the king PA.
That's how I like to see myself as the production manager, was that I was the king of the PAs, and that's how I rose to my level. As I felt, I think there's got to be a certain level of confidence in what you do, and though I'm not the biggest and the strongest guy, I am the best.
You can lead by example.
Yes, I am not competitive. I'm just the best.
It's that simple.
No, I was a very competent PA, and I think with an added level of customer service, which was absolutely necessary in doing the job well, though they weren't my customers. It was just the attitude of customer service. Our customers were other departments. Like, that's who we had to service within the festival, was making sure that the theater department was taken care of, that the venues department. Actually, it's hilarious that I started with the theater department. The most self-sufficient department,
Yay.
other than production, is the theater department. Yes. I don't think anyone would deny that.
No one would deny that. Not at Sundance.
Yes. You know, I already hear who's denying it.
Who's denying it?
IT.
I would double down.
Yeah.
I've got some stories about it.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
IT.
I'm okay with that. What, were they difficult? Wait, were they hard to deal with?
Were they hard to get a hold of?
Well, I find that hard to believe. But it's servicing all these different departments. It was important to have that high level of communication. What are your needs? Establishing those needs. Have we met those needs? And then doing all that service with a smile and doing to the best of our ability. That's where I felt like I really excelled, and I feel confident that is the reason that I was able to climb the ladder the way I did. And honestly, I think I would have climbed faster, but it was taking me off of the trucks more and more. Mm-hmm. And I felt like that's where I really shined. And I was like, don't put me behind a desk. You're losing.
Afraid of the desk.
I was afraid of the desk.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like they were losing my true talent, which is to go even further in my background, and what actually got me into film festivals was while in film school, I moved furniture for a living. So for almost 6 years, I was running crews and moving furniture on a daily basis and going to school for half of the year. And while I was in film school, not even a film connection. It was a moving connection. A friend I was moving furniture with gave me a heads up that his girlfriend got a job in the ticketing department of Sundance, and said,
They give the most jobs.
yeah, there's a lot of need,
Yeah.
a lot of bodies, a lot of seats to fill. And he was tagging along, and somehow she got him onto production. She got him an interview, and with his wherewithal and what his skill set was, it was like, oh, we'd be glad to have you on production. He extended that invitation to me because we were working on the same cruise, moving furniture in Denver, and it was a no-brainer. It was like, absolutely, you had me at Sundance. When do I pack up? And so I got to go out and work for that first year. But the background of being a furniture mover and what the capability was, it was like box trucks, moving furniture, moving items, working with a variety of personalities and personality types. That was my background, and so I fit perfectly into the mold. And then also having a love for film and filmmaking and a true affinity for Robert Redford and his career and what he has built. So it was such a perfect step on the journey for me, and I wasn't king for ever or for long, but I still claim the title.
Well, you definitely are in this house.
Oh, thank you.
That's wild. It's wild that it took a moving connection to get you to Sundance, and that it wasn't film school that connected you to Sundance. But it makes sense when you think about it from our perspective, because we've seen so many festivals come and go, get built, and then, it's amazing how much longer it takes to set something up than it is to tear it down.
Mm-hmm.
It would take 6 weeks to build all those theaters from nothing in Telluride. We'd go into a hockey rink and build a theater. We went into a gymnasium and built a theater, and then it all comes down in like 4 days, not even a whole week.
Yeah.
And so when you think about all the stuff, all the seats, all of the equipment, the signage, the awnings, everything, it's just so much stuff. So you have to be really good at moving. And I only had 1 year as a production assistant. It was at Telluride. I was a dog.
You were a dog.
I was a dog.
Dirty dog.
And I got to do all those lifting and moving, and I'm glad they let me do that stuff. It was clear that they would have preferred a big, beefy guy to have done that, but they were trying to give the opportunity to people who it would be relevant to. But I think they did have to be pretty careful about, okay, we need to make sure we still have half of the group of dogs is guys, so that we can for sure move all the things we need to move in the time we need to move them, because there's also definitely a scale of, you didn't hire enough people, and we also don't have enough time, but we'll still make it work. Yeah.
All of these, even Sundance, ran as if they were working on a shoestring budget, and it made you be very creative as far as, we need to make this work with the materials and limited budget that we have. And it makes you be very creative, because you can't just throw money at a problem unless you work for TCM.
And then usually you get to throw money at the problem.
Yes. Yeah, best budget in the business.
Thanks, TCM.
As far as my experience was. But I think this is a great overview.
Yeah.
And I think the next place we'll go would be, just because it's in an independent film doesn't mean it's any good. Okay.
We're ending with a burn. Ending with a banger.
This has been Rap Notes. Vanessa,
yes,
thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Michael.
This has been wonderful.
Mike McCran.
Thank you, Vanessa Koppel.
Vans Koppel.
To
my festival friends.
Yes. This has been Rap Notes on Hot Mic.